lot of times students face a lot of pressure of, getting on a certain wheel, graduating with a certain amount of time, getting this job, et cetera, et cetera. But you kind of took a different approach. I was wondering briefly if you could touch on your version of a gap year, which didn't exist at the time.
No, actually, my version of the gap year, it was definitely not called a gap year back in 1985 when I started it. It was kind of like he's messing up his life year, but I would actually make it more forceful than that. But Brett, I'll start right away and to give you the context for that, and that was that I was sort of on my way to the Naval Academy. At least that I was really focused on trying to go to the Naval Academy. I had done a program in Costa Rica, a short summer exchange program, the summer before my senior year in high school, and it really made me think differently about the world. And I really started to question what does it mean to go to the Naval Academy, where I'll be for 4 years and then 5 years as a line officer. 9 years from now, I'll be able to decide for myself. And I rejected that. And I decided that I would actually go to Italy and be an exchange student. The program that I had done the summer experience with was called American Field Service, offered me that opportunity. I was being raised by a single mother, there was no money. So they gave me a scholarship to do it, and I went to Italy. I say this to my kids, the sooner you become Nico Ban and Julia Ban, those are my children's names, the better off you'll be. Whether or not you think about it, you might be trying to please me or your mother, like dispense with that. Go figure out who you are, go follow your thing, and you'll do great. We'll be super proud of you. And that was the path I was on back then. And I had no idea the impact that year in Italy would have had on my life. I think it's going to come out as you and I talk. But it was transformative for me. But the most important part of it was that I was following my own, at that point, I was making my own decisions, even if they angered other people. I think we all have it in us. I really do. And the problem is, especially early on in our lives, and I see this sometimes with my kids, often we're eager to please. The passion bandwagon is like, you are supposed to have a passion, you're supposed to go out and pursue it, and you're supposed to, have this phenomenally successful life and live happily ever after. I don't buy it, okay? There are people who are passionate about certain things. Good for them. That's wonderful. It must be wonderful. I'm a little bit more interested in encouraging curiosity and like what interests you. And I say that because I think if you follow the interest, if you're curious about the possibilities, and then just naturally follow the thing that kind of floats your boat, if I can put it that way, the most, the likelihood is that you'll develop passion for it. I say all the time, like, become exceptionally good at something, be recognized, maybe even with a title, even more so be paid for doing that thing, maybe even become an expert in that thing, and watch how you become passionate about that subject matter. So I'm not a believer in passion. I am a believer in interest. Follow that.
I guess two things would be kind of interesting to talk about. One, any advice for those students going through that period when there are obviously going to be downturns? And then two, I've always been fascinated by this idea of kind of working, especially residents, down to the bone. I know it's gotten slightly better now versus the future, but it always seemed odd to me to make that the siphoning part, right? As opposed to, you wouldn't want to put someone on low sleep towards, making these life or death decisions, but that tends to happen a lot. So I was curious to see how you think that maybe even evolves over the next several years.
If you're going to go on this journey and you're really going to push yourself, right? And you're going to get outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to set high expectations for yourself and lofty goals, you're going to fail. Okay. And so for me, and I'm going to give an example of this, it's not so much about whether or not you fail. We all fail. If you don't fail, I'm concerned you're not really pushing yourself, and you're not really in the arena. Are you familiar with Teddy Roosevelt's "Man in the Arena"?
Yep.
Just be a man in the arena.
Talking about your idea of focus, I was wondering, there's two things I wanted to focus on. That is one, you said, I think a lot of students have a similar, and I myself felt this way, where you have almost like I call it like a paradox of choice, where you have so many choices in life because you've been successful, you've gotten yourself into college, and then you get there and it's like, okay, the world's asking you in the next 2 to 3 years to figure out where you're going to go with your journey. And I think one of the neat things that you talked about was that you help by focusing on a few things, you can actually do them really well. So I was thinking, does that dovetail off of, that idea of finding your interest and then kind of going all in on that?
You know what I'm going to encourage people to do is I'm going to encourage people to close doors. I'm going to encourage people to shut down optionality. In doing that, I think to a certain extent, you're going to make your life a lot easier. There are just some things this is an amazing world and an amazing life. And if we could do all of it, it would be wonderful. We can't. So my advice to people is just be like, I would love to do that, but I'm never going to do that. And therefore I'm not doing it. Right. And that actually frees you up. All right. Couple of examples. When I decided to get married to my wife, my life got infinitely easier. Okay. Because I no longer had the mental stress of dating and all that stuff. I just focused on being married to this person. And that was so much easier. And I've shut down all sorts of other things. Could I have had a life with other people? I think I probably could have, quite honestly. I'm extraordinarily happy in my marriage, but I don't think it's the only marriage for me, but it was necessary that I shut certain things down in my life. I encourage people to do that. I just don't think we can do all the things we'd like. The second example is I really like sailing in sailboats. My wife can get seasick in the car sometimes. I know that's car sick. No, she can get seasick in the car. She looks at a boat on the water. She's getting a little seasick. Okay. So guess what, folks? No sailing in my future. Okay. I have actually shut that down. I'm never going to live on a boat. I'm never going to pursue that because that's not in my card. So that's over. I don't have to waste any time, energy, and most importantly, money on becoming a sailor because, it's not going to happen. So that's what I would say about it is have the courage to say no to things. I'm never going to do that. That's someone else's problem. And then next, you got to prioritize. Like, what are the things that I'm really going to spend my time and energy thinking about and doing? And and that priority is one of the keys to success, is getting that right. And that I'll let you fill in the blanks. Is that the priority of your family, your career, like that type of thing, or in your career, what type of things you're going to focus on? I think it's all of those things. But being able to say no to things and then to prioritize the things you will do and when is a big deal. So that's how I think about a lot of this.
Also, I know you're a huge believer of mentorship. So how those two forces can really shape your career and like you said, help accelerate it much more than if you don't have it.
I think it's the single most important thing in our lives, almost in every aspect of our life, is to build relationships and to never treat relationships as transactions. They are not transactions. Like, you should not be building relationships so that you can be a leader and get a good job and get paid a lot of money. That's transactional. I think a genuine interest in other people and who they are and their well-being and trying to understand what motivates them and what they're trying to do and trying to help them achieve those things where it makes sense is what it is all about. And I think that if there is one thing that you ought to focus on, it's relationship building.